has been a negative for those who are observing her, that they are encouraged in a way and end up being a little careless because they feel that HIV is no longer that threatening disease. It's containable. Have you kind of discussed that, the positive angle to this, I mean the negative angle to this very positive development?
Overall, the story of people access treatment has been a very positive one. And people understand it like it's a chronic disease now. People understand the risk of transmission. People understand the need to adhere to treatment. So you may find isolated incidences, but overall people understand the disease much better. The network of people living with HIV is very positive. It encourages own members to understand how the drugs work, the importance of following regimens as prescribed by the doctor. Adherence become a very critical issue as part of the way they live. So positive living is a story that's been told everywhere. And that's the story you want to tell the world. Yeah. And people slowly understand that this really, it's a chronic disease now, just like diabetes. But people know the risk of infecting other people. And in fact, people living with HIV/AIDS are playing a significant role in preventing HIV. And that is the story, and that's the position we want everywhere people to follow. So the fact that we have ARVs, I don't think people are complacent at all in terms of how careful they were. And it has been known over generation. The fear factor never helps. It never helps. And that is why the original advertisement or public awareness campaign that was showing thin, dying people with coffins and graveyards, you no longer see that. Because it's known fear never really drives behavior change. It's a better understanding of what's going on that really makes people change behavior. So fear doesn't really work anymore.
Well, that was Dr. Nicholas Murugori, the Director of the Global Plan Secretariat, UNAIDS and PEPFAR, speaking with us on In Focus. And now for more information on any of today's headlines, including the latest on the suicide bombing attack in Nigeria that killed at least 7 people, please visit us online at voaafrica.com. You can also visit us on Facebook. Just search for In Focus.
And coming up, the walking wounded refugees from Syria's civil war travel a dangerous road for medical help. Plus, a major defection from President Assad's government. We'll have a live report from London when we come back.
Straight Talk Africa, celebrating 10 years of Straight Talk with Shaka Sali. Straight Talk has a new look, a new format as we launch into our second decade. Shaka Sali, his guests, and the Straight Talk audience bringing you new insights and in-depth discussions on the issues shaping the African continent and the world. It's Straight Talk Africa with host Shaka Sali on Voice of America Television, radio, and the Internet.
Welcome back. You're watching In Focus. Now, the regime of Syrian President Bashar Assad suffered a major blow on Monday when Prime Minister Riyad Hijab defected to Jordan along with his family just 2 months after taking the post. In a statement read in his name on Al Jazeera television, Hijab says he left what he called, quote, the killing and terrorist regime to join the opposition in the ranks of the Freedom and Dignity Revolution. Jordanian officials confirmed Hijab's defection to Jordan, but Syrian state television says Hijab was sacked and replaced by his deputy, Omar Halawanji. News of Hijab's defection came just hours after state media says a bomb explosion tore through the 3rd floor of the state television and radio, damaging walls, collapsing a ceiling, and wounding several people. Syria's Minister of Information is accusing enemies abroad for that attack.
Well, now, VOA's Henry Ridgwell has been following the crisis in Syria and recently returned from Turkey. He joins now from London with more on these developments. Good evening, Henry.
Good evening, Vincent.
Now, first, what really is likely to be the significance of the defection of Prime Minister Riyad Hijab?
Well, I don't think it is necessarily critical to the survival of the President Assad regime so much as an embarrassing development that has to be explained away by the regime. As you said, at the moment, Syrian state television is claiming that the Prime Minister was fired and has replaced him with the Deputy Prime Minister. Riyad Hijab wasn't a vital figure within Assad's circle. He was the Prime Minister. He was appointed only 2 months ago in a round of parliamentary elections organised by Assad as that was supposed to be a sort of round of reforms, but which his opponents say was just a sham. He wasn't part of that close inner circle. He wasn't an Alawite, which is the religious minority loyal to President Assad, of which he is a part. Mr. Hijab was in fact a Sunni, and the Sunni area of Syria where he was from was actually coming under heavy bombardment by Syrian government forces who were trying to oust the Free Syria Army rebels from there. Go ahead.
Yeah, now, so talking about the bombardments or the attacks, you just returned from the Turkey-Syrian border. Give us a little bit update on what the rebels told you about their fighting against the regime of Assad.
Well, they're very upbeat, they're very confident. They claim they've made big territorial gains in the past 2 months, and well, in fact, I can see the difference on the ground when I was there. 2 months ago, I could see with my own eyes Syrian government forces operating right in the border region, but on the last trip last week that I made to that region, it was clear that it was under the control of Free Syria Army fighters. Their rebel flags had been hoisted in place of the Syrian government flags across all the border posts, so they are positive of the ground they are making, but that is just the countryside. Of course, the major battles that are currently taking place are happening in Aleppo and Damascus, the two major cities of the country, and I think the results of those battles will go a long way to determining the final outcome for Syria.
Now, very briefly, what is the condition of the refugees that you got to see?
They are being cared for, I think, largely well by Turkey. So far, Turkey is accepting foreign material help, not personnel help, and it's building several more refugee camps to try and cope with the numbers coming over. The rough government figures given to us by Turkey were that around 300 refugees are arriving every day.
Wow.
Of course, if the battle for Aleppo worsens, that could get even more.
Well, thanks a lot, Henry. Thanks a lot. That's VOA's Henry Ridgewell reporting from London.
Now, for Syrians wounded in the civil war, hospitals may be a place of danger. President Assad's forces regularly search emergency rooms and clinics for protesters and rebels. As VOA's Margaret Bashir reports, the injured are instead making a treacherous journey to neighboring Lebanon for medical attention.
Hasna was a typical Syrian housewife, living in the countryside of Homs with her husband and 2 small children until frequent army bombings caused them to flee 4 months ago. But when they thought it safe to return, tragedy struck. The family was hit by a rocket while riding on a motorbike.
My daughter was in my arms, and when the accident happened, she was blown out of my arms. It was a terrible feeling. I will never forget the sound of the rocket and the sound of my heart pumping, and how we fell to the ground, and I started praying.
Hasna's children died instantly, her husband a short while later. She lost both her legs.
My legs are finished. I knew they were going to be cut.
Rebels helped her to travel from Homs to Tripoli in northern Lebanon, a trip that usually takes 2 hours. But it took 12 and involved numerous vehicles and her being carried by stretcher part of the way. Once in Lebanon, the Red Cross brought her to this hospital. This man, who does not want his identity revealed, said he was an officer in the government's army and defected in January. He joined the Free Syrian Army and was injured in April during fighting in Homs. He says the violence in Syria is the fault of President Assad.
Bashar is the commander-in-chief, and the army will not move without his direct orders. So everything that is happening in Syria, he is the one to blame. Him and his inner circle, they rule everything.
The defector, despite multiple injuries, vows to fight again for the opposition.
After my operation, I am going back directly to Syria, to the Free Army.
Hasni, a civilian who was shot on his motorbike 6 months ago in Homs, says after his treatment, he too hopes to return and help Syria become free.
I really need to be cured so I can go back to Syria to stay with the guys, and I'm really relieved they are doing well. My morale is getting higher and I have a good feeling. I'm very hopeful all Syrians will celebrate soon.
Even